verse 13. Let's all seek refuge in God from Satan the rejected. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. A group of them said, O people of Yathrib, you cannot attain victory, go back. Others made up excuses to the prophet. Our homes are vulnerable. When they were not vulnerable, they just wanted to flee. Had the enemy invaded and asked them to join, they would have joined the enemy without hesitation. They had pledged to God in the past that they would not turn around and flee. Making a pledge with God involves a great responsibility. So yeah, looking at these verses, we can see that the distinguishing characteristic between people who aren't fully sold on God, right, and His messenger, and they don't really truly believe, because you can see how they wanted to turn back and flee when in a pretty uncomfortable and scary situation, such as what they're facing, these people. And also they're in verse 13 we're reading that how different people made up excuses. One group was talking about not attaining victory and stuff, and just spreading poison, really, and just spreading doubt. And but the people, we know this is a test. It has different functions to serve. It serves different functions, but we also know one of the important functions is a test to be able to show who your real friends are and who isn't, your friend. So, and we can even see it's in verse 14, how the enemy, if they ask these same people that were thought to be with the Muhammad, they would have joined the enemy without hesitation, and so that just, it just shows what God knows what's in these people's hearts. Because based on like how this verse is presented, it didn't happen, but it said had it happened, had the enemy invaded, they would have joined them. So, and we're also told in verse 15, when we make pledges with God, it involves a great responsibility. So this is something that, if it's easy, if God is the most important thing to you and in your life, and you're not, that this world ends, right? You really believe in it. And you're not, worried about your homes and stuff. Like these people said, they're vulnerable in the materials of this world, then you wouldn't, God will help you and make this easy for you to fulfill any pledges that you make. So this is just good reminders these are good examples for us, from the past that we can reflect and learn on them. 16, say, if you flee, you can never flee from death or being killed. No matter what happens, you only live a short while longer. Say, who would protect you from God if He willed any adversity or willed any blessing for you? They can never find beside God any other Lord and Master. So, they're being told right here, if they end up fleeing, which many of them probably did, they can't flee from the real death. They can't even flee from death of this world, but the second death, as it's talked about as well, that's something that I don't think they give thought to, or else they wouldn't worry about this first death, that happens in this world. So, and it's just reiterating, you don't, even if you flee, death will still catch up to you. So if you're trying to flee from death now, it could catch up to you in a week or a year or 2 years or not that much longer. So it's a cheap trade that these people make, but they don't realize they're making. And it also ties in, so if death will come to you, it comes to everybody, and it's something that it's good to be mindful about, for all people. There's some people that don't, or if you start talking about death, they get kind of antsy or a little bit nervous or something, or it makes them uncomfortable, because it's a fact of life. It's a certain fact that everybody passes. So it's nobody can protect us from death, and nobody can protect us, as 17 said. If any adversity or any blessing comes our way, they can't find any other God besides God as the Lord and Master to enact or to enforce these things, or to carry out these things, or to whatever it is, adversity or blessings. Muhammad can't help anybody, and you can see how many people devote their resources to worshiping that idol, as well as Jesus, and even as well as we have a lot of other examples. So these are good reminders for us. God is fully aware of the hinderers among you, and those who say to their comrades, let us all stay behind. Rarely do they mobilize for defense. Excuse me. Also, they are too stingy when dealing with you. If anything threatens the community, you see in their eyes rolling with fear, as if death already had come to them. Once the crisis is over, they whip you with sharp tongues. They are too stingy with their wealth. These are non-believers, and consequently God has nullified their works. This is easy for God to do. So yeah, there was people that hindered the fight in the cause of God, and it behooves me to try to comprehend why these people, if they're I guess if they're joining or supposedly on the side of the God and the messenger, it's just, they're just wasting their own time and everybody else's time if they're promoting ideas like discouragement. But this is also, it's, to me, it seems like this is part of the test, because there's people that this is Satan's point of message. This is Satan's message right here. Let us all stay behind. So people who listen to these hinderers among the believers and stuff, you have to, it's a test for those people as well. So but these people we're being told their attributes. If anything threatens the community, so you can see they have fear, and like in other parts of the Quran that tells us, you should only fear God if they only knew, and not fear the people. And once the crisis is over, they whip you with sharp tongues, and these are not believers, and consequently God has nullified their work. So this is this God is telling us, laying out the information he's talking about these people. They thought that the parties might come back. In that case, they would wish that they were lost in the desert, asking about your news from afar. Had the parties attacked you while they were with you, they would rarely support you. So these are the hypocrites. These are evil people, really evil people, because they sit with the messenger, they sit with the believer, and there's a really important task that's trying to be done, right? And God is supporting the believers and the messengers, and God's victory is going to come. But Satan's message and Satan's point of view and Satan's soldiers, human soldiers, he has his jinn soldiers too, but you can see that they also have to have their point of view represented. But this is thank God informs us of these things, and he gives us good examples about what these people do. So they're not your real friends. They rarely support you. And I mean, this is probably self-evident too to the believers at the time as well. And so the next verse has a footnote, so I'll read the footnote after, because it's a pretty important verse, I think. The prophet's courage. The messenger of God has set up a good example for those among you who seek God in the last day and constantly think about God. So, the footnote says Satan took this verse out of context and relied on the people's idolization of the Prophet Muhammad to innovate a whole set of unauthorized and unreasonable regulations called the Sunnah of the Prophet, quote unquote. This created a totally different religion. See Surah 42, verse 21, and Appendix 18. So yeah, this is as the Quran says in Surah at the beginning of Surah 3. You know, there's multiple meaning, and there's different allegorical verses that the wicked will take these verses from the Quran and twist them to come up with a different meaning. There's so many traps, right, for these people, and so you know this is telling us, you know, the messengers of God has set up a good example for you know those who want to believe, those who want to be saved, those who see God in the last day and constantly think about God. It doesn't, you know, so when somebody sets up an example, it's just an example, right? It's kind of like something to go off of and something to reaffirm ourselves, you know. So like if I'm showing an example of how to do a task at work, and when it comes time to do that task, that's just an example, you know, things that it doesn't mean or entail that I have to do exactly what was done in the example. It's just to get an idea and to have you know a good, but they don't look at it like this. They literally take it out of context, as the footnote said, and they try to clone or mimic is probably a better word. They try to mimic everything the prophet has done down to a T. And then we also know, I mean, most of this these hadiths and sunnahs and stuff, we don't even they're not even they came hundreds of years after the prophet, and they have no basis, you know, as the Quran tells us, you know. So this is you know, we can see that you know the idol worshippers will look at this verse and use this verse to completely you know disregard hundreds of other verses in the Quran that you know say what not to do, you know, not to idol worship, and that the Quran is the only the best hadith and only you know hadith, none of these other factions. So you know this is just an example that, and God knew this was going to happen, you know. And so, but this is still put in here, you know, because people, you know, people have to be people are still tested and stuff, you know. When the true believers saw the parties ready to attack, they said, "This is what God and His messenger have promised us, and God and His messenger are truthful." This dangerous situation only strengthened their faith and augmented their submission. So yeah, this is a beautiful verse, because it's regardless of what was happening, the fact that they saw the truth, you know. So it could have been something very, you know, seemingly unpleasant for this physical body, what the physical body might have to face, but their souls are happy. I mean, they're happy as a whole, because they see that this is the promise is true, regardless of what the promise was. It has come to pass, and it only strengthened their faith, you know, and augmented their submission. So it's you know, we can see that you know the true believers are gonna when they see these things come to pass, it strengthens them, and regardless of a dangerous situation, and in this case it was, and it actually strengthened their faith and augmented their submission, which is really good, you know. Among the believers, there are people who fulfill their pledges with God. Some of them died, while others stand ready, never wavering. God will surely recompense the truthful for their truthfulness and will punish the hypocrites if he so wills or redeem them. God is forgiver, most merciful. So yeah, there's believers that believers fulfill their pledges with God, and we can see in the times of war, they others, some will die, others stand ready, never wavering, so they're ready to fight, kill, and get killed in the cause of God, and we can see that God's recompenses the truthful for their truthfulness, right? And will punish the hypocrites, or he may, if he so wills, he may redeem them. But it's careful not to take this verse out of context, just like we learned from above. I mean, God knows everybody. God knows the hearts of every human being. He's the only one who can guide. So, but this doesn't mean if someone's a hypocrite, or you maybe had a long time to come to that understanding, it doesn't mean that you can just sit around and keep befriending these people and having stuff to do with them, or maybe even in the first place, not disowning them in the first place, in lieu of this verse right here, because we're told in other parts of the Quran, and this is where Satan will try to trick people and stuff, and get them to go to the absolute extremes and stuff, and as there's people in the past that once attended these studies, they came up with a conclusion that you don't have to disown your parents if they're disbeliever, if they're hypocrites or whatnot, or they but we're given examples and precedents in the Quran, and it's a test for people, So if people want to not, go through the uncomfortable, they don't want to go through what's required and really persevere, because it's not an easy thing, even if they're from your own family, they'll sit here and then they'll be like, oh, well, look, this is oh, look, I don't, God may redeem them, so I'll just continue to associate with them for the rest of my life, or he may not, so you're risking, if you have parents who are idol worshipers, right, or they're part of like a idol worshiping faction of a church or something, and there's no hope for these people, but you sit here and you lie to yourself. After you've given them the message and you've talked to them, right, you've exhausted all measures, and the judgment is you're your own best judge in every situation, because that's but if you tell yourself these things in an effort to convince yourself not to do what God tells us, to run for our lives, and that's you're setting yourself up for failure, so God, you have to, based on your knowledge, you have to make the best decision, and then if God sees to it that maybe these people are guided, that's for him to decide, that's not for you to sit around for your whole life and put your salvation at risk, really, and associating with these people, because let's say these people reform or something, or they're on the basis and they could come to you years later or something, and that's fine, God was controlling that, so that's just something to remember, God willing. During Muhammad's time, God repulsed those who disbelieved with their rage, and they left empty-handed. God thus spared the believers any fighting. God is powerful, almighty. He also brought down their allies among the people of the scripture from their secure positions and threw terror into their hearts. Some of them you killed, and some of them you took captive. He made you inherit their land, their homes, their money, and land you had never stepped on. God is in full control of all things. So, yeah, mashallah, God is running everything, so this is a conclude, like the messenger said, his most important sermon, we have to constantly keep this, in the forefront of our mind about this. So he's in control of, every little direction that a fly could be flying around, or a mosquito in our room or something. I mean, all the way to the matters of, the galaxies, the universes and stuff. So, he's the one who caused, the believers to inherit their land, and we see these spoils that they've got. And as we're also told, there's even the killing, it is not you who threw it, but it is God who threw, and took these disbelievers out. But he thus gives us a chance to earn, a lot of credit. So, so this is, good reminders when, we can see that God is running everything. So, and there's also in verse 26, the people of the scripture, who they had allies who were, I guess, secure in their positions and stuff, and I'm assuming this was referring to people, maybe either the Jews or the Christians, but yeah, I mean these are the same people that have reverted from the truth, at some point are deviated from the message, from their prophets. And so special responsibility for being so close. O prophets, say to your wives, if you are seeking this life and its vanities, then let me compensate you to allow you to go amicably. But if you are seeking God and his messenger and the abode of the hereafter, then God has prepared for the righteous among you a great recompense. Special responsibility, O wives of the prophet, if any of you commits a gross sin, the retribution will be double for her. This is easy for God to do. Any one of you who obeys God and his messenger and leads a righteous life, we will grant her double the recompense, and we have prepared for her a generous provision. So yeah, there's a big responsibility, when you're so close to the messenger. I mean, even saying, this goes for any messenger or prophet, but when we're told here that, the wives of Muhammad, they have a greater responsibility, because people can look to them to set good examples and stuff, which we'll get to in a minute. But this is it makes sense too, that if you're closer in this respect, you're going to have a greater responsibility. And also, on that same note, if you do well, God will reward you accordingly, and he prepares a great recompense, for the wives of the prophet. Double the recompense too, and also if they commit a gross sin, there's the retribution will be doubled for her. Because it's kind of like if you should, kind of like that saying, like you should know better, like you hear people say that to people with a lot of responsibility, or that someone who comes so close to the message and so close to one of God's messengers and stuff, and even the wife, then they really should be not be like among the best, but in the sense that there's a greater responsibility for what they know and the truth that has come to them so closely, and so it's kind of like you're there's a thin line between the consequences for messing up or deviating outside. So setting the example, O wives of the prophet, you are not the same as any other woman. You're not the same as any other women. If you observe righteousness, you have a greater responsibility. Therefore, you shall not speak too softly, lest those with disease in their hearts may get the wrong ideas. You shall speak only righteousness. So yeah, God is telling them too, how to be with the people, because like we read earlier, there's evil people amongst the messengers and these factions and stuff. So they'll take something like this, because they have disease in their hearts, and they're wicked, and they're gonna get get the wrong ideas. That's so God is encouraging them to be speak cordial, with not too softly. I mean, I'm not going to say how to speak, but we're told they're not to speak too softly. You should only speak righteousness. So that's pretty much all you need to know. You shall settle down in your homes and do not mingle with people excessively like you used to do in the old days of ignorance. You shall observe the contact prayer, Salah, and give the obligatory charity, Zakat, and obey God and His messenger. God wishes to remove all unholiness from you, O you who live around the sacred shrine, and to purify you completely. So the age of ignorance, as prior to the revelation of the Quran, there was there's people's habits and stuff that you had to drop basically and stuff, because you didn't. That's why it's called the days of ignorance, is because you're ignorant to the fact of some of your old ways need to be changed and reformed, probably many of them. So this is a good reminder for the people, or these women. Remember what is being recited in your homes of God's revelations and the wisdom inherent therein. God is sublime, cognizant. So there's so much wisdom within the Quran. And anytime you read from the Quran, or you're talking about it, or talking about subjects related to submission and God's religion, there's inherent wisdom that's just built in there, and we can see that every facet of life it applies to. So this is the book. This is the true book of wisdom. Because a lot of people that like to or that think some of these other ancient texts, or these ancient Chinese, Japanese, which there's proverbs, and every civilization had their own proverbs. But even if you look at the truth that is found in some of those proverbs or old sayings, it all ties back to the truthful ones, all ties back into the laws and the statutes and commandments and wisdom that's in the Quran, because we know all truth belongs to God. He is the truth. And everything we need to know is in this book. We don't need to turn to other sources. Equality of men and women, the submitting men, the submitting women, the believing men, the believing women, the obedient men, the obedient women, the truthful men, the truthful women, the steadfast men, the steadfast women, the reverent men, the reverent women, the charitable men, the charitable women, the fasting men, the fasting women, the chaste men, the chaste women, and the men who commemorate God frequently, and the commemorating women. God has prepared for them forgiveness and a great recompense. So this is we can see the title of this, equality between men and women. And as we're told, I think in Surah 24, these type of women and these type of men belong with each other, and on the contrary, the disbelievers, the idol worshiping women belong with the idol worshiping men. So it goes both ways, So this is the best way to be, and we can see every single the truthful man. It mentions the women right after every single one. So if we can uphold these traits, these honorable traits, which we have to be hard on ourselves and stuff to carry out, and eventually God makes it easy for us as we grow and as our souls, and as a submitter we can see God prepares for us forgiveness, which is really the best thing to have on the day of judgment. And then the great recompense, of course, is with paradise and stuff is that's a comes as our reward and stuff. But we're not doing it for the reward. We're doing it because we want to be redeemed and we want to be with God, and we love God for giving us a second chance. Even though sometimes it's easy to get caught up in this world and not think about just how why we're here and stuff. Like as long as you're making God your God. But these are ways you can think throughout the day just randomly. Just how God gave you this chance, every single human being, So this is also our last chance, and there's such a big responsibility on us as well as submitters. Now that we've been given the truth, so may God help us. Major error committed by Muhammad. Muhammad the man disobeys Muhammad the messenger. So no believing man or believing woman, if God and his messenger issue any command, has any choice regarding that command. Anyone who disobeys God and his messenger has gone far astray. So we can see we're seeing God and his messenger, just like right here, Muhammad the messenger. So I don't know if there's context. Okay, yeah, so that's context of the next verse, God willing. But this is we'll read that next study, God willing. But we're given an example of how Muhammad made a mistake, or you can really, as the messenger of the covenant, put a major error. So so we're to obey the messenger, but not, if the man, the person part, or the man part of the of the human being, which is the messenger in this case, makes a mistake, we could learn from that and stuff, So God willing, that concludes this teaching portion. If there's any comments or questions, please feel free.
Mashallah, thank you.
Mashallah, thank you. Mashallah.
Mashallah, just thinking about these verses that were shared earlier about the parties from verse 13 through 15. It's interesting to see like how the believers invite these people to join, and they make up excuses. But if the disbelievers ask them to join, they will join without hesitation, and it just shows how God doesn't want these people to be part of anything that is good if there's disbelief in their hearts. As God says, these people are discouraged from participating, and encouraged to be on the wrong side. And we see that the disbelievers and the hypocrites usually end up on the wrong side, but in this case, they're just hurting their own souls without realizing it, and they think they're going for safety and not being killed. But obviously, this is because they don't have belief in their hearts. They think that this is going to be a loss for them in whatever way. Whereas something like this is a great striving in the cause of God and will save their souls. Obviously, being at the time of Muhammad, imagine going through all of that hardship. How much credit did these people miss you know, in exchange for hell. It's totally crazy.
Yeah, that's a real good way to put it. How much credit they missed in exchange for hell.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, another thing I wanted to comment on regarding like verse 19. You know, it says, um, uh, when anything, if anything threatens the community, you see their eyes rolling with fear as if death had already come to them. Right? So you can see God says, you know, the fear is a tool of the devil, and God instills, I mean, Satan instills fear into his subjects. And so in this case, I mean, these people were afraid of dying, you know, very much. And we understand that, you know, the believers are fearless and they strive in the cause of God fearlessly without fear of blame, without, you know, fear of any kind of consequences, because that's the only thing they want is God's salvation, and we just want to strive in the cause of God. And if there's any, you know, anything that, any dangerous situation, anything like that, they're confident that, you know, God will give them victory, that God will suffice them, that God will look after them. And that's the same example that we see that God says, you know, the prophets and the messenger said, in this case, Muhammad, as a messenger and a prophet, you know, set a great example too by constantly thinking about God. And you know, when these people were faced with a situation like a life and death type of a situation, I mean, this actually strengthened them even more, and it turned out to be, you know, something that you know, distinguished them from so many others. So I think the takeaway for us also as submitters is that, you know, we should, you know, try to have the same mindset, you know, when it comes to anything, you know, in the cause of God. You know, if you're inviting people, or if you're standing up for something in the cause of God, or any situation that you're faced with because of God, you know, you should be confident, and you should be sure, and you should be certain that God will help the believers, you know, and God will grant them victory. I mean, obviously, in this case, these people trusted in God, right? And so, trust in God is very important in these situations. Obviously, these people didn't think that they were, you know, the cream, or, you know, they were amazing believers, but they had that kind of trust in God where they believe that God will help them because they are doing their part, you know. And as long as we know that we're doing our part, then we should put our full trust in God in all of these situations.
What's up,
Okay, but no one else has any comments. I also have another comment about the other verses we read about the special responsibility for these people that were around the time of Muhammad, and Marshall has explained very well how these people had great responsibility, um, and if they deviated, I mean, obviously the retribution was big. Now, as far as the setting of example, I mean, people, I mean, this is a good. These now, some people would say that this is just for the prophet's wives, for example, right? Like not to speak too softly, or all this other stuff that has been mentioned here, or not mingling with the people excessively as they did in the old days of ignorance. But the subtitle says setting the example, right? So if these women are asked, prophets' wives are being asked to do this, to set an example, and only they are supposed to do that and not the other people, then who are they setting the example for, right? Setting the example means that you're setting an example for people to come after you, right? And that means that other people are supposed to follow that example. So the reason why these women were being told this and to set the example was so other people would follow them. Like good submitters always set the example, and so these people were being told that they have special responsibility because they're so close, and people are looking up to them. So they should set the example, right? Doesn't mean that just because it's talking to them, addressing them in these verses, that this only applies to them, because there are people who will say that this only applies to them. But if you look at the footnote, I mean, the messenger created a messenger the covenant put here. It's very clear. It says setting the example, right? And so obviously it's not like certain commandments just apply to these women and not to other women. And in this case, it's setting the example for everybody. That this is a high standard that people should follow. You know, and naturally, I mean, if people don't pay attention to this, like women wouldn't pay attention to this, then it would lead to some negative outcomes for them, and so this applies to everybody. But my other point regarding this was also how the setting the example and responsibility is so important, as we see, people that were around the time of the messenger of the covenant. Most of these people didn't set the right examples. They set one of the worst examples. And I mean, like looking at the wife and the children, um, and other people around them. So most, I mean, obviously there may be some righteous people that we don't know, maybe, but the people that were most prominent and close to them, most of them didn't set the good examples for other people and set bad examples, misled a lot of people, made a lot of lies about God. Uh, but this is exactly what God is telling us not to do.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's exactly what an example's for. Is you set the example so that people in subsequent generations, everybody really, is literally to follow your example. So they're told to do this, and that's what the footsteps you should follow and uphold.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, good point too. Like we even I mean, the examples in the sense like with Deep. I mean, some of these other people who challenged the messenger, and I mean we know what happened and what how the messenger of the covenant responded. But yeah, I mean they set bad examples and stuff. But in a way, it's also we know what not. I mean, we know. I mean, inherently, we know what not to do. But that's like you said. There's people that are very close to the messenger with a lot of responsibility that completely flunked their test.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? We also see at the third conference too. That example.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Any other off-topic questions or comments about the verses from anyone? Brother Abdullah, I wanted to ask you, are you also able to lead studies on Tuesdays? God willing, let me know. And Saturdays, God willing. No, no. That English, that's fine. Your English is fine.
Yeah, no, his English is very good. Yeah.
Yeah, mashallah, your English is fine. Don't make excuses to stay behind. Alright, anyone else has any comments or questions?
I have a comment.
Uh-huh.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, but not very clearly. I don't know why.
Okay. Title Equality of Man and Woman. No, this verse.
No, we can't really hear you, brother. I mean, I can't. I don't know if anybody else can. Sound is muffled.
Yeah, it sounds a little bit muffled, brother. But I think he was reading, or he's talking about verse 35.
Yeah. Do you have a muffler typed to your face?
Yeah. Can you hear me now, brother?
Yeah,
Yeah,
my
now
bad.
we can hear you.
Okay, yeah, I had the headphones. That's one. It has a mic. It should be able to.
Yeah, maybe
But
you
it
need
was
to get
meant.
better ones. You know, some have better
Yeah.
than others. Yeah.
One more.
Yeah.
Okay. Subhanallah. It's amazing, you know. Verse 35. This God explains us, you know, explains to us the equality of man and woman, you know, like we see in different sects, you know, of religion, you know, how that's a big issue, you know. They always put the women, and the messenger talks about it a lot too, and you know, this verse explains everything regarding that, how we are equal, you know, and it's just it's a great blessing, subhanallah. It clarifies a lot of things.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That's true.
Yeah, mashallah, thank you. Yeah, because we can see like with the traditional Muslims, how it's the exact opposite with them. How they don't follow anything in the Quran, and they just follow their own ways. And they themselves set the worst example for the rest of the world that would probably be really interested and turned on by the Quran and all the wisdom in it, but just the oppression that they enact on their women. They're gonna get what's coming for them, as we know from the smoke. That's gonna hit them eventually. Maybe in our lifetime, I think. Hopefully.
SubhanAllah, brother. Yeah, the messenger, explains it very well too in Essentials of Submission, one of his videos. I believe that's the title. And he explains how the women, they have a great responsibility too. They must be knowledgeable about the Quran too, because they teach our children. That's how he explains it. So, SubhanAllah is very,
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point and reminder. That's exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we can also, we're looking at verse 36, that, in the same way, like people have tried to find flaws and stuff in the messenger of the covenant. We're told that there's a distinction between the man and then the messenger. So if Muhammad the man disobeys Muhammad the messenger, that we're given an example in the Quran and we're told to learn from it, but there's people that would take these verses out of and then take these verses and run with it, and mainly to do in our day and age with our messenger for these generations and every generation until the end of the world. They'll try to they'll do whole sermons and stuff, as I've heard. Just on one point, trying to zone in on something that may have the messenger may have done or not done in lieu just to push their point of view. So that's there's like I said, there's all types of traps for people. So if they want to find, kind of like the messenger said, if they want to find flaws with them, or if they tend to want to think of them as like perfect human beings, God probably wants to guide those people versus someone who is just focused on finding flaws, because the fact that's their aim point, right, and that's their focus, there's something wrong in these people's hearts that they're making like their goal just to prove, this is incorrect, or this, when they themselves, they're probably wrong and they don't know what they're talking about. And we see those how even the messenger of the covenant acknowledged like that stuff. Satan's point of view had to be represented, at these conferences and stuff. But this doesn't, give people like just a free pass, just because they see, we were told these things like in Surah 80, he frowned. We're told And these are reminders for us that there's a distinction between the man and the messenger. You know, Muhammad the man, Muhammad the messenger, Rashad the man, Rashad the messenger, and so forth, etc. With all of the prophets and messengers. But you know, it doesn't give us, you know, it shouldn't be our focus. You know, to you know, people with disease in their hearts are going to take something like this and then run with it in order to disobey the messenger or something, or a commandment, or just invent their own commandment. You know, we can see how that literally happened with somebody at the time of Rashad Khalifa. You know, Edip, who thought he knew better. You know, because Rashad the messenger was, you know, obviously preaching what God was giving him, and we have the cleaning up and purifying of the religion, you know, as like we're told in Surah 74, purify your garments. So you know, we have the 5 contact prayers a day, the 4 steps we would do, but when somebody comes in and they start to let these type of issues fester, they'll think that they know better than the messenger, and then they'll just invent their own religion in a sense, and say that no, there's only 3 contact prayers a day, you know. But that's, you know, God is running everything, so that's all in accordance with you know, Satan's message being promoted, you know, because other people are going to see that. And I know somebody that has seen that and ended up not thinking that there's 5 contact prayers a day. You know, someone close to me that didn't believe that, you know, they took up Edip's point of view. So this is it's a test for people, you know, to see which side they'll choose.
Sure. Are there any other comments or questions from anyone? Okay, if there are no other comments or questions, God willing, we can conclude the study. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Brother John, for leading this study and for streaming. God willing, our next English Quran study would be on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. God bless you all. Assalamu alaikum.
God bless you.
God bless you.
Assalamu alaikum.